The blood-red sun dipped below the horizon, as Isaac Ingram spotted something unusual against the barren landscape, a heap of fabric and limbs that shouldn't have been there. Miles from anything resembling civilization in the unforgiving New Mexico territory of 1878. Isaac pulled back on his horse's reins, dust swirling around them as they came to a halt. He'd been riding since dawn, following a trail that had long since gone cold. 3 weeks tracking the Dawson gang, and all he had to show for it was an empty canteen and a weary horse. The bounty would have to wait. The form wasn't moving. Probably another unfortunate soul claimed by the desert. Isaac had seen it before: prospectors, settlers, all manner of folk who underestimated the harshness of this land. He should ride on. Daylight was precious, and he needed to reach Cottonwood Springs before dark, yet something held him there. Perhaps it was the delicate curve of a hand extending from beneath the dusty fabric, a woman's hand. "Whoa, boy," he murmured to his horse as he dismounted, boots landing heavily on the packed earth. The air was still hot despite the setting sun, carrying the scent of sage and dust. Isaac approached cautiously, hand resting on his Colt revolver out of habit rather than necessity. It was indeed a woman. Her dress, once fine but now tattered and dirty, spread around her like a shroud. Dark hair matted with blood and dust partially covered her face. Isaac knelt beside her, removing his hat as he searched for signs of life. Her skin was hot to the touch, not the coldness of death, but the dangerous heat of exposure. A shallow, ragged breath escaped her lips, startling him. She was alive, if barely. "Madam," Isaac said, his voice sounding unnaturally loud in the vast silence. She didn't respond. Gently, he brushed the hair from her face, revealing a nasty gash across her temple and bruises that told a story without words. Left for dead. Deliberately, Isaac glanced around at the barren landscape stretching for miles in all directions. Whoever had done this had made sure she wouldn't be found. It was sheer luck he'd chosen this route today instead of the trail through the canyon. He retrieved his canteen and carefully tipped a small amount of water between her cracked lips. Some dribbled down her chin, but her throat moved reflexively, swallowing. "That's it," he encouraged, though she showed no sign of consciousness. "Just a little." The practical part of Isaac's mind, the part that had kept him alive for 32 years in this unforgiving country, told him to leave her with the remaining water and continue on. The woman was likely beyond saving, and taking responsibility for her meant delaying his hunt, risking his own survival. But as the woman's eyelids fluttered, revealing a glimpse of deep amber eyes, Isaac knew he wouldn't be riding on alone. "You're safe now, madam," he said, unsure if she could hear him. "I'm going to help you." Isaac fashioned a makeshift travois from branches and his bedroll, securing it to his horse. He carefully placed the unconscious woman upon it, covering her with his coat to shield her from the setting sun. As he mounted up, he cast one last glance at the horizon. Somewhere out there, the Dawson gang was putting more distance between them. The bounty was slipping away, but some things mattered more than money. Cottonwood Springs wasn't much of a town, just a cluster of buildings gathered around a reliable water source that had served as a stagecoach stop before the railroad had bypassed it a few years back. Most travelers avoided it now, which suited its handful of residents just fine. The sun had long since disappeared when Isaac arrived, the woman still unconscious on the travois. A few lanterns glowed in windows, but the single street was deserted. He headed straight for the small wooden structure with a faded sign reading Dr. H. Willoughby, physician. Isaac's knock was answered by a gray-haired man with spectacles and a perpetual scowl. What in tarnation? The doctor's complaint died on his lips when he saw the woman. "Bring her in." The doctor's quarters were sparse but clean. Isaac carried the woman to the examination table while Dr. Willoughby lit additional lamps. "Found her in the desert," Isaac explained, stepping back as the doctor began his examination. "About 15 miles east, left for dead, I reckon." Dr. Willoughby nodded grimly. "She's severely dehydrated." This head wound is nasty but not fatal if infection doesn't set in. There are defensive wounds on her hands, broken ribs. He looked up at Isaac. You did right bringing her here, though I can't promise she'll make it through the night. I'll pay for her care, Isaac said firmly. The doctor's eyebrows rose. You know her. No. Then she's not your responsibility, son. Isaac stood straighter, his jaw set. She is now. The doctor studied him for a moment, then nodded. She'll need round-the-clock attention. I could use the help if you're staying. I'm staying, Isaac confirmed, though he wasn't entirely sure why. The sensible thing would be to leave money for her care and continue his hunt. But something about this woman and her plight had stirred something in him, a sense of purpose beyond collecting bounties. What's your name, by the way? Dr. Willoughby asked as he began cleaning the woman's wounds. Isaac Ingram. Well, Mr. Ingram, if you're determined to help, you can start by bringing water from the well. We'll need plenty of it. That night stretched into eternity as Isaac and the doctor fought to keep the woman alive. Her fever raged, and twice they thought they'd lost her. By dawn, Isaac's eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion, but the woman had stabilized. She's young and strong, doctor, Willoughby said, washing his hands in a basin. That's in her favor. The next day will tell us more. Isaac nodded, studying the woman's face, now cleaned of blood and dirt. She was younger than he'd initially thought, perhaps mid-20s, with delicate features that spoke of refinement. What had brought her to such a fate, alone in the desert? You should get some rest, the doctor suggested. Mrs. Abernathy runs the boarding house across the way. Tell her I sent you. I'll stay, Isaac replied, settling into a chair beside the bed. Just for a while, doctor. Willoughby gave him an assessing look but didn't argue. Suit yourself. I'll be in the back if you need me. Left alone with the unconscious woman, Isaac felt suddenly awkward. He removed his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. What was he doing here? The Dawson gang was getting farther away with every passing hour. The bounty had been substantial enough to buy that piece of land near the Colorado border he'd had his eye on. Yet here he sat, watching a stranger breathe because something in him couldn't abide leaving her to die alone in the desert. Who are you? He whispered, not expecting an answer. To his surprise, the woman's eyelids fluttered. She moaned softly, her head turning toward the sound of his voice. Can you hear me? Isaac leaned forward, his voice gentle. You're safe now. You're with a doctor. Her lips parted, and she made a sound that might have been a word before slipping back into unconsciousness. For 3 days, Isaac rarely left the doctor's house. He helped change bandages, spooned broth between the woman's lips when she was lucid enough to swallow, and bathed her forehead with cool water when the fever returned. In between, he took care of his horse, sent a telegram to the marshal in Santa Fe explaining his delay, and learned more about the small community of Cottonwood Springs than he'd ever cared to know. On the 4th morning, Isaac returned from the general store with supplies to find the doctor's door open and voices inside. He entered to find Dr. Willoughby standing beside the bed, talking to the woman, who was propped up against pillows, awake and alert for the first time. She turned as Isaac entered, and their eyes met. Hers were indeed amber, almost golden in the morning light and currently filled with wariness. Ah, Mr. Ingram, Dr. Willoughby said, our patient is finally properly awake. This is the man who found you, miss. The woman regarded Isaac with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. You found me? Her voice was rough from disuse but carried a hint of Eastern refinement. Isaac nodded, suddenly uncomfortable under her scrutiny. Yes, madam, out in the desert east of here. Miss O'Malley here was just about to tell me how she came to be in such a predicament, Dr. Willoughby prompted. O'Malley, Isaac asked. Olivia O'Malley, she confirmed, then winced, one hand moving to her ribs. At least, that's who I was before I apparently died and came back to life in this place. Isaac found himself oddly captivated by her directness, despite her weakened state. You nearly did die, Miss O'Malley. Someone left you out there with that intention. A shadow crossed her face. Yes. I remember that part quite clearly. Dr. Willoughby cleared his throat, Perhaps we shouldn't overtax you with questions just yet. You need rest to recover. I've been unconscious for days, according to you, Olivia replied with surprising firmness. I think I've rested enough. She turned back to Isaac. You stayed. The doctor said you've been here all this time. Why would a stranger do that? Isaac shifted uncomfortably. It was a fair question, one he'd been asking himself. Couldn't very well leave you to fend for yourself, madam. She studied him for a long moment, as if trying to discern some hidden motive in his features. Finally, she nodded slightly. Then I owe you my gratitude, Mr. Ingram, though I'm not sure I was worth the trouble. Everyone's worth the trouble, Miss O'Malley, Isaac replied simply. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. A rare philosophy in these parts, I've found. Over the next few days, Olivia's strength gradually returned, though she remained confined to bed on the doctor's orders. Isaac continued to assist with her care, finding himself increasingly drawn to her quick wit and resilience. Bit by bit, her story emerged. Olivia O'Malley had come west from Boston with her brother following their parents' death, seeking to claim land left to them by an uncle. But her brother Michael had fallen in with a bad crowd in Santa Fe, specifically the Dawson gang. When I realized what kind of men they were, she explained to Isaac one evening as he helped her sit up to eat, I confronted Michael, told him we needed to leave immediately. He promised we would after one last job. Her hands trembled slightly around the bowl of stew. That was 2 months ago. The job went wrong, very wrong. A bank teller was killed. I heard about it in town and knew Michael was involved. I tried to convince him to turn himself in, that we could explain he was coerced. The Dawsons don't take kindly to betrayal, Isaac said quietly, pieces falling into place. The same men he'd been hunting had done this to her. Olivia nodded. They came to our cabin that night. Michael wasn't there, thank God. They were convinced I knew where he was hiding, that I'd helped him run, but I genuinely didn't know. Her voice faltered. They questioned me for hours. When they realized I couldn't tell them what I didn't know, they decided to use me as a message to my brother. Isaac's jaw tightened as he imagined what she'd endured. They took you into the desert. James Dawson himself drove the wagon, she confirmed. Said if by some miracle I survived, I should tell Michael that nowhere was far enough to hide. A bitter laugh escaped her. As if I could walk 15 miles with broken ribs after being beaten half to death. You survived, Isaac reminded her gently. Her amber eyes met his. Because of you. Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. Isaac found himself wanting to protect this woman who had already endured so much, to ensure that no harm came to her again. As the days stretched into a week, Olivia grew stronger. She began taking short walks with Isaac's assistance, first around the doctor's small house, then out onto the porch. The townspeople were curious about the mysterious woman and her equally mysterious caretaker, but Dr. Willoughby kept gossip at bay with his gruff manner and respect for patient privacy. Isaac sent another telegram to Santa Fe, explaining he was delayed indefinitely. The reply was terse. The bounty on the Dawson gang had been claimed by another hunter. 3 brothers captured, but James Dawson himself had escaped. The news should have disappointed Isaac more than it did. Instead, he felt a strange sense of relief. His purpose was here now. One evening, as they sat on the doctor's porch watching the sunset paint the desert in golds and crimsons, Olivia asked the question that had been hanging between them. What will you do now, Mr. Ingram, now that you've missed your bounty? Isaac glanced at her, surprised. How did you know about that? A small smile played at her lips. Small towns have big ears. Dr. Willoughby mentioned you were tracking outlaws when you found me. Isaac looked back at the horizon. I hadn't decided. Don't let me keep you from your livelihood, she said softly. I'm well enough now that James Dawson is still out there, Isaac interrupted, and he knows you survived. Fear flashed across Olivia's face before she composed herself. You think he'll come back to finish what he started? Men like Dawson don't leave loose ends, Isaac confirmed. Especially not ones that can testify against them. Olivia fell silent, considering this. Finally, she asked, "What would you suggest I do? Hide forever?" "No," Isaac replied firmly. "That's no kind of life." He hesitated, then added, "I have some money saved. Enough to get you back east if that's what you want." She studied him for a long moment. "Is that what you think I want, to run back to Boston with my tail between my legs?" The fierceness in her voice surprised him. "I just meant I know what you meant," she said, her tone softening. "And it's kind of you, but the West is my home now, for better or worse. I'm not leaving." "Then what will you do?" Olivia looked out at the darkening landscape. "I don't know yet, but I won't let fear dictate my choices. I've done that too long already." Isaac admired her courage even as he worried for her safety. "Wherever you decide to go, I'll make sure you get there safely." She turned to him, her expression unreadable in the fading light. And then, Isaac trailed off, realizing he had no answer. The thought of saying goodbye to this woman he'd come to respect and, if he was honest, care for deeply left an unexpected hollowness in his chest. Before he could formulate a response, Dr. Willoughby burst through the door, looking agitated. "Rider coming in fast," he announced. "Could be trouble." Isaac was on his feet instantly, hand moving to his gun. "Get inside," he told Olivia, his tone brooking no argument. For once, she didn't challenge him, disappearing into the doctor's house as Isaac stepped off the porch, positioning himself in the deepening shadows. The rider came into view, a young man on an exhausted horse, riding as if the devil himself were in pursuit. He pulled up short when he reached the center of town, looking frantically around. "Help," he called out. "I need help." Isaac recognized desperation, not threat, and stepped forward. "What's the problem?" The young man nearly fell off his horse in relief. "My name's Michael O'Malley. I'm looking for a doctor. My sister, she's hurt bad." Isaac froze. Michael O'Malley, behind him, he heard the door open. Olivia stepped onto the porch, her face pale in the twilight. "Michael." Her voice was barely above a whisper. The young man whipped around at the sound, disbelief washing over his features. "Livy. Oh my God, Livy." He stumbled toward her as she descended the porch steps, and they collided in a fierce embrace that caused Olivia to wince from her still healing ribs, though she didn't pull away. "They told me you were dead," Michael sobbed into her shoulder. "Dawson bragged about it when they caught up to me." "I nearly was," Olivia replied, drawing back to look at her brother, her hands cupping his face. "What happened to you? Where have you been?" Michael's expression darkened. "Hiding, running. The Dawsons caught up to me near Taos. I got away, but not before." He gestured to his side, where Isaac now noticed a dark stain spreading across his shirt. "Dr. Willoughby," Isaac called, and the physician was already moving forward, guiding the young man inside. As the doctor tended to Michael's wound, a bullet graze that looked worse than it was. Isaac stood apart, watching the siblings' reunion with mixed emotions. Olivia hadn't left her brother's side, her relief palpable. But there was tension too, unspoken recriminations hovering beneath the surface of their conversation. "The marshal arrested most of the gang," Michael was explaining. "But James got away. He came after me, said he'd already taken care of you and would finish the job with me." "The others are in custody?" Isaac asked, speaking up for the first time since they'd moved inside. Michael glanced at him warily. "Who's this?" "Isaac Ingram," Olivia answered. "He saved my life. The Dawsons left me in the desert to die, and Mr. Ingram found me." Understanding dawned on Michael's face. "Then I owe you a debt I can never repay, sir." Isaac nodded stiffly. "Just answer the question. The Dawsons are in custody, 3 of them. The marshal's men caught them 2 days ago, but James slipped away during the arrest. That's when he came after me." Dr. Willoughby finished bandaging Michael's side. "You're lucky. The bullet just grazed you. Keep it clean and you'll be fine." "We need to leave," Michael said urgently to Olivia. "James will be coming. He swore he'd find me and lead him straight to your sister again." Isaac asked, an edge to his voice. "You think that's wise?" Michael flushed. "You don't understand. He won't stop." "I understand perfectly," Isaac replied coolly. "Your sister nearly died because of your poor choices, Mr. O'Malley. I'm not inclined to let that happen again." "Isaac," Olivia said softly, the first time she'd used his given name. Please. The room fell silent. Even Dr. Willoughby seemed to be holding his breath. Isaac met Olivia's gaze, seeing the silent plea there. She would choose her brother despite everything. Of course she would. Family was family. I'll keep watch tonight, Isaac finally said, his voice neutral. We can decide what to do in the morning. He stepped outside before anyone could respond, needing the cool night air to clear his head. He'd been a fool to think. What exactly? That Olivia might choose to stay with him. A man she barely knew, a bounty hunter with nothing to offer but a dangerous life on the trail. Her brother's arrival had changed everything. Now she had family again, someone with a real claim to her loyalty and protection. Isaac settled on the edge of the porch, rifle across his knees, prepared for a long night. He didn't expect Olivia to join him an hour later, wrapped in a blanket against the desert chill. You should be resting, he said without looking at her. I've done enough resting these past 2 weeks. She sat beside him, close enough that he could smell the faint lavender scent the doctor's wife had given her. Michael's asleep. Dr. Willoughby gave him something for the pain. Isaac nodded but didn't speak. You're angry, Olivia observed after a moment of silence. Not angry, Isaac corrected. Just seeing things clearly. And what do you see? He finally turned to look at her. That your brother brought trouble to your door once and he's done it again. That running with him now is just postponing the inevitable. Dawson will find you both. Olivia's expression remained calm. I know. That wasn't the response Isaac had expected. Then why? He's my brother, she said simply. The only family I have left. I won't abandon him no matter his mistakes. Even if it costs you your life, it won't, she replied with surprising confidence. Because we're not running. Isaac frowned. What are you saying? Olivia took a deep breath. I've been thinking about this since you told me Dawson was still out there. Running isn't the answer, neither is hiding. There's only one way this ends. Olivia, we draw him out, she continued, determination hardening her voice. Use Michael and me as bait. When Dawson comes, we'll be ready. Isaac stared at her, torn between admiration and concern. That's too risky. You have a better plan, she challenged. Dawson won't stop. You said so yourself. He'll keep hunting us, and anyone who helps us will be in danger too. Her expression softened. Including you, Isaac. The way she said his name sent an unexpected warmth through him. I can handle myself. I know you can, she agreed. That's why I need your help. You're a bounty hunter. You know how men like Dawson think, how they operate. Help us end this once and for all. Isaac studied her face in the moonlight, the determination in her eyes, the set of her jaw. This wasn't the same broken woman he'd found in the desert. Something in her had changed, had hardened like steel forged in fire. You've already made up your mind, he observed. She nodded. I have. But I won't pretend I'm not afraid. I'm terrified. But I'm more afraid of living my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for Dawson to find me. That's not living at all. Isaac understood that feeling all too well. He'd spent years hunting men like Dawson, always moving, never putting down roots. It was a lonely existence, one he'd begun to question even before finding Olivia. All right, he finally said. We'll do it your way. But we do it smart, no unnecessary risks. Relief washed over her features. Thank you. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the stars wheeling overhead. Finally, Isaac asked the question that had been nagging at him. What will you do after, if we succeed? Olivia considered this. Michael talks about California, starting fresh where no one knows us. He thinks we could open a store with the money our uncle left us. She paused, but I'm not sure that's what I want anymore. What do you want? Isaac asked quietly. She turned to look at him directly. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I know it includes staying alive, building something meaningful. Her voice softened. And perhaps finding out if the connection I feel with the man who saved my life might grow into something more. Isaac's heart quickened at her words. Olivia. She smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her face. I'm not asking for promises, Isaac. I know we barely know each other, but I'd like the chance to find out if you would too. Before he could respond, a sound caught his attention, a horse approaching, moving slowly as if trying to remain undetected. Isaac was on his feet instantly, rifle raised. "Get inside," he whispered urgently. "Wake your brother and the doctor, stay away from the windows." Olivia hesitated only a moment before obeying, disappearing inside the house. Isaac moved silently to the edge of the porch, using the shadows for cover. The rider had stopped just beyond the edge of town, dismounting carefully. Even in the darkness, Isaac recognized the distinctive silhouette James Dawson, moving with the confidence of a predator who believed his prey was unaware. Isaac had a clear shot, could end it right there. But a man shot in the back, even one as deserving as Dawson, would raise questions. The law had to be satisfied, and Isaac wanted this finished cleanly, with no shadows hanging over Olivia's future. So he waited, tracking Dawson's progress as the outlaw crept toward the doctor's house. Inside, Isaac knew Olivia would be preparing her brother, positioning themselves according to the hasty plan they'd formed. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do. Dawson approached the back of the house, exactly as Isaac had predicted. The outlaw would expect Michael to be wounded and vulnerable, Olivia nowhere in the picture. He wouldn't be prepared for resistance. Isaac circled around, careful to remain unseen. He watched as Dawson tested the back door, finding it unlocked, deliberately left so by Doctor Willoughby before he'd retreated to the front room. The outlaw slipped inside. Isaac counted to 10, then followed. The interior was dark, but a single lamp burned low in the examination room. Dawson was there, gun drawn, moving toward the figure lying on the bed. Doctor Willoughby posing as the sleeping Michael. "That's far enough, Dawson," Isaac called, his voice steady, his gun trained on the outlaw's back. Dawson froze, then slowly turned. His face was leaner than the wanted posters depicted, his eyes colder. "Who the hell are you?" "The man who found what you left in the desert," Isaac replied evenly. "She didn't die, Dawson, and neither will her brother." Understanding dawned on Dawson's face, followed by a cruel smile. "Well, ain't that touching? You her knight in shining armor now." His eyes flicked to the figure on the bed. "That ain't O'Malley." "No," came Michael's voice from the doorway behind Dawson. "I'm right here." Dawson whirled, bringing his gun up, but Michael was ready. He fired first, his bullet catching Dawson in the shoulder, spinning the outlaw around. Dawson's gun discharged harmlessly into the floor as he stumbled. "Drop it," Isaac ordered, stepping closer, his own weapon unwavering. Dawson's face contorted with rage. "You think this ends it? You think you're safe?" He laughed bitterly. "I've got friends, they'll hunt you down, both of you." "Your friends are in custody," Olivia said, stepping into view beside her brother. "It's over, Dawson." The outlaw's eyes widened at the sight of her. You should be buzzard food." "Sorry to disappoint," Olivia replied, her voice remarkably steady. Dawson's expression transformed into something feral. With surprising speed, he lunged toward her, a knife appearing in his hand from nowhere. Isaac fired without hesitation. The shot echoed in the small room as Dawson crumpled to the floor, the knife clattering harmlessly beside him. For a moment, no one moved. Then Dr. Willoughby was on his feet, checking Dawson for signs of life. "He's dead," the doctor confirmed after a moment. Olivia sagged against her brother, the strength that had carried her through suddenly deserting her. Michael held her up, his own face pale with shock. "It's over," Isaac said, crossing to them. "It's really over now." The aftermath was surprisingly straightforward. The town's mayor, who also served as justice of the peace, deemed the shooting justified self-defense after taking statements from all involved. James Dawson's body was buried in the small cemetery outside town, his personal effects sent to the marshal in Santa Fe as proof of his death. 3 days later, Isaac found himself on the doctor's porch again, this time watching Olivia and Michael in animated conversation as they walked down the town's single street. The siblings had reconciled, their bond tested but ultimately strengthened by their ordeal. Michael had abandoned any notion of a criminal life. chastened by how close he'd come to losing his sister. They were discussing their future, plans that remained uncertain. California was still a possibility, though Olivia had been non-committal whenever the subject arose. "You're leaving soon," Dr. Willoughby observed, joining Isaac on the porch. Isaac nodded. "Got a telegram this morning, new bounty out near Tucson." The doctor sipped his coffee. "Thought you might be considering a change of profession." Isaac glanced at him. "Why's that?" "Just an observation," the doctor replied mildly. "You've spent 3 weeks in one place, longer than most bounty hunters can stand, and you look at that young woman like a man who's found something worth staying for." Isaac didn't deny it. "She has her brother now, they have plans." "Plans change," Dr. Willoughby said with a shrug, "especially when the heart's involved." He patted Isaac's shoulder. "Don't be a fool, son. Some treasures are worth more than any bounty." With that, he returned inside, leaving Isaac alone with his thoughts. Olivia spotted him watching and said something to her brother before heading toward the doctor's house. She looked different now, stronger, more confident, her step lighter since Dawson's threat had been removed. "Michael's buying supplies," she explained as she joined Isaac on the porch. "He's determined to be prepared this time, no matter where we end up." Isaac nodded. "That's wise." She studied his face. "Dr. Willoughby says you're leaving." "Tomorrow morning," he confirmed. "Got work waiting, more outlaws to catch. That's what I do." Olivia was quiet for a moment. "What if there was something else you could do? Something here?" Isaac's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "Cottonwood Springs has no sheriff," she said. "Mayor Wilson mentioned it yesterday, said they've been looking for someone with experience handling trouble." She smiled slightly. "Someone like you." "I'm not a lawman," Isaac protested mildly. "You could be," Olivia countered. "You have the temperament for it. Fair but firm, people respect that." Isaac considered this unexpected possibility. "And what would you do if I stayed?" "Michael and I own land about 5 miles from here, our uncle's claim. There's a small house, some decent grazing land. Michael wants to raise horses." She took a deep breath. "I'd like to make it a home, a real home." The implication hung between them. "That's an awful lot of change to consider all at once," Isaac said carefully. Olivia nodded. "I know, and I'm not asking for commitments or promises, just possibilities." Her amber eyes held his. "You saved my life, Isaac. Not just by finding me in the desert, but by showing me I could be strong again, that I could face my fears instead of running from them." Isaac swallowed hard. "You did that yourself. I just helped a little." "You did more than that," she said softly. "You stayed when you had every reason to leave. You cared when I was a stranger who brought nothing but trouble to your door." Her hand found his, her touch sending warmth through his entire body. "I'm not asking you to give up who you are. I'm asking if who you are might include me." Isaac looked at their joined hands, then back to her face, this remarkable woman who had endured so much and emerged stronger. He thought of all the years he'd spent alone, moving from town to town, bounty to bounty. It had been a life of purpose, but not one of connection, not one of belonging. "I'd need to finish this last job," he said finally. "Honor my commitment." Olivia's face lit up with hope. And then, Isaac said, a smile spreading across his features, "I think Sheriff Ingram has a nice ring to it." Her answering smile was like the sunrise breaking over the desert. "It does indeed." In that moment, with her hand in his and possibilities stretching before them like the vast western sky, Isaac knew he'd made the right choice. He'd found a woman left to die, and in saving her, he'd found his own salvation, his own chance to truly live. 6 months later, when they exchanged vows under the cottonwood trees that gave the town its name, with Michael standing proudly as best man and the entire community in attendance, Isaac couldn't help but marvel at how finding a half-dead stranger in the desert had led him to a life fuller and richer than he'd ever imagined possible. Sheriff Isaac Ingram and his wife Olivia built that life together in Cottonwood Springs, a life of purpose, of community, of family. And neither ever forgot that sometimes the greatest journeys begin in the darkest moments, when one soul reaches out to another and chooses to stay until they both can truly live again.